Hi everybody, I am Lauren Delisa Coleman, and you are inside another episode of the Filmio interview series with filmmakers, producers, and directors. And I am very excited to be able to talk right now with Emmett Brennan, who has a film called Reflection, A Walk with Water, which is just so moving and comes from such an important place right now.
So the film is about water, and it's about our relationship to water, fundamentally, and how that relationship is at the root of so much environmental collapse. And the film follows me as I journey with a bunch of other pilgrims, 200 miles next to the Los Angeles Aqueduct, tracing the water from its source in the eastern Sierras all the way down to Los Angeles, where LA gets about 30 to 100% of its water from that location. And yeah, this story between LA and the Owens Valley and what's happened to the Owens Valley, just the whole water story of that speaks volumes to the global patterns of water use. So that's kind of a heartbeat of the film. And then spiraling in and out of that journey is this search for solutions, search for a vision for humanity worth living for around water. Like, how can we redesign human life, human systems differently, around water differently, in order to support the conditions for life and keep this planet habitable. So the film is really trying to be an uplifting, inspiring orientation towards, there's this quote, "The more beautiful world our hearts know is possible." Yeah.
It's just so cool to me on a variety of different levels, right? Because of course, so that's the premise, but then you've put yourself into it to be able to really experience it, right?
Yeah.
So how did you kind of decide to take that route? And as I'm just watching, I'm like, okay, tired after the first mile. You really obviously threw yourself into this, and there's all these different adventures that are happening and all these different encounters and conversations as this is happening. So I guess, how did you really decide to kind of shape it like this? And what maybe some of the biggest hurdles were around that?
Yeah.
Because I know there had to be many.
Yeah, this has been 5.5 years in the making. So, yeah, how do you keep up such a long span project relevant as you, as the creator, change and grow? So definitely challenges. I didn't want to be in the film. That was never the vision. I'm not really like that kind of persona that wants the attention in that way. So yeah, that came because the film was just empty of something, and everyone who was watching it was reflecting to me that we already feel the presence of the filmmaker in it, just because I was on the journey and everything is filmed so intimately, and you can feel that I have relationships with all the people that are in the film. So as a viewer of these early edits, people were saying that they could already, the filmmaker was already in it, but not intentionally. So I just got pushed by all sorts of close people and friends and other producers to step in. And that process ultimately was super important for me to deepen my own relationship with water and to be moved by the content of the film. It's like I had to actually let the content of the film change me, and to make the film as good as it could be, and stepping in as some sort of narrator character. I mean, I'm not in it a whole lot. I'm just like a loose thread that kind of helps move things along and make it feel personal. But yeah, I think that's...
I just find it fascinating that you can maintain the love, really, and the passion for a project over so many years. And I've talked to different filmmakers about this, and everybody has his or her own kind of method for that, right? What was yours with this? Because I would imagine, especially with a film like this, or what you're trying to communicate, you want to be able to get that type of message out as soon as possible, right? Because you want to kind of shape people's views and help them to become more aware. But at the same time, it takes time to be able to do that properly. So how did you manage to create that balance, and what were some of the bigger challenges around that? Because 5 years is a long time, especially in the days of social media, and everything is very immediate, right?
Completely, yeah. It was just a constant dance of holding the urgency of wanting to put it out quickly and finish, and then also just being transparent to the reality of my working capacity and just how quickly the film was coming together. And it just had a life of its own. I couldn't push it faster than it wanted to go. So it was just a practice of trust, knowing that this issue is relevant, and when it's done, it'll probably be the best time for it to come out. And that feels like what's happening. It's like, this is the right time for it to come out. It wasn't like, if I'd pushed to finish it and I was done last year, then I would have released it and COVID would have hit, and that would have been great. So it's all working out. It really, the relationship between me and the project really was hard for a while, and I needed to just like scrap everything and rewrite the script. And I initially filmed this project and started it with my partner at the time. And so I just decided to, and we broke up throughout the course of filming, and so much of what we were learning and seeing about water and our treatment of water as a planet, as a people, reflected the patterns that were going on between them and I.
That's interesting.
So I ended up writing this love story. I was like weaving a love story with the story of water, and it just made it so current for me because I was healing from a heartbreak, and I was channeling that into this creative process. And then eventually I was told I couldn't go that route, but it opened this whole new door of like, actually this is a love letter for water. It's like, it just allowed my heart to open to something deeper in my personal connection to water and to the project. And,
Wow.
and then everything just kind of became alive again for me. Yeah.
So that was part of the time frame then as well.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about, or rather off camera, about how the California fires have, I guess, affected, well, of course, you, so many others, but also this film too. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Totally.
Because you were already working on the film before the fires, and then the fires happened, which makes it even more, urgent and relevant. How that kind of, I don't know, shape the outcome of the film.
Well, it's interesting because the role of fire in the film is, it's almost like an interlude. It's totally connected to water, like as a consequence of our impact on the land. We're changing the climate, and I think this might be an opportune moment to kind of name the importance of the water cycle, and I'll get back to fire for sure. But most people are familiar with the large water cycle, where water evaporates from the ocean, goes over land, rains, and then makes its way through creeks or rivers and back to the ocean, the big water cycle. And then there's this whole other cycle called the small water cycle, where water is actually pulled from the ground through the roots and bodies of trees and plants and grasses, and that vegetation sweats the water back into the atmosphere, and then that water condenses and rains, and the water in the atmosphere is like essential for regulating climate. So as we pave over ecologies and put cities down, or as we graze vast acreages and turn enormous stretches of land into agriculture, monocrops, and just all the things we do as humans, we're like changing the surface of the earth in very dramatic ways and getting rid of vegetation, making it hard. And the consequence is that water can no longer move from the ground to the atmosphere. So that's the context of our human impact. And one of the consequences in California and other places is that we're having hotter days, heavier winds, and longer droughts. And all of that is just like perfect for fire. So we're getting these massive fires. But the other part of this fire story, which the film really focuses on, is that we used to have a role in managing these ecosystems for fire. Like indigenous people for thousands of years would tend these landscapes with fire. And then all of the wild animals like the bear and the antelope and the deer and others would like stomp grasses into the ground, cycle those nutrients back into the soil, and tear down dead trees and dead limbs. But now we're like, there's this ethos, this environmental ethos or ethic of, we have to stay out of the forest, like we're not belonged to the wild places. And then Smokey the Bear, where it's like, no fires. We have this fear of fire. So all these places are just left untended, and they're way overgrown. There's tons of dead growth. Grasslands are just like filled with dead vegetation that's never been pushed back in to turn back to soil. So when a fire comes through, it just gets up to the canopies really quick, and then it tears through like Santa Rosa, the big city next to where I live. And yeah, so it's like, how do we remember our role in these places? And we contend for fire. Yeah.
It's so interesting. Is that what you would say would be your best hope for a takeaway from the film when people watch it?
Yeah, I would say like the dream for this film is that it helps people remember our relationship to the rest of life. Like, I mean, this planet exists because of an unbelievably complex web of relationships, and we're like flattening those relationships. We're turning all these cyclical circle, one thing feeds the other, into just a flat line, and life is suffering as a result. Like that, we're eroding the conditions that make life possible.
And that primarily comes from, ignorance in the best sense of the word, meaning lack of knowledge.
Totally,
right?
yeah.
And I thought, this quote from I think, just notes on the film that I was given from you is just about water being so direct to the nature of our interconnected existence. And it's funny, I don't think any of us really think about it like that until, I don't know, water is maybe not clean or not pure or something, but in this country, we're blessed to have enough of it, so much that, I don't know, there's water all in front of the Bellagio, and it does, tricks, and it's entertainment. But then when you think about other parts of the world, well, water is more revered because it is more scarce, and the people also have a better understanding.
Yeah. But even here, we're relatively water abundant on the East Coast right now. But the same pattern is at play, where water that falls is just running on pavement or on compacted bare ground to the nearest creek or river, and our water tables aren't just statically full. So we're draining our water tables on the East Coast, and people's wells are running dry in places that are historically super lush. So if we don't change our relationship and our development patterns here, we can see where it's going, because we've seen where it's gone everywhere else in the world. Many of the places that are dry and water scarce were once lush places. So
it sounds
very relevant
like anything
everywhere.
It's about education and being able to have a larger context.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit quickly about the Grammy-winning producers who have supplied the music for this, because it's a very meaningful topic. But I think that the music kind of helps find a bit of lightness in it, right? How did you come together with some of those artists?
Yeah. Okay. It's amazing. For 4 years, I'd been compiling this Spotify playlist of songs that were moving to me and made me feel the essence of the film. So I just threw them all into this water playlist. And the intention was that I would use those to edit with later and then license them all. And that would be the score to the film. So I did that. I had this amazing score that I loved. It was so rich, such a span of genres. And then I started to look into what it would be to license them. And it was no way. It's
Right.
So expensive, because there were some well-known, successful artists on that list.
Right.
So I just had this moment of sitting back one day and being what am I going to do? Who could possibly recreate the kind of soul that I feel is in this music and span the amount of genres that this music is spanning skillfully? And I scanned the universe in my mind, and it was Jacob Collier, he's the one. So I just found his email online, cold emailed him. I was hey, you want to work on this?
Sometimes that's the best way, though.
Yeah, and he responded the next day, and he said he had watched the entire film, was profoundly moved by it, and he didn't personally have capacity to score it, but he has this amazing friend whose talent is second to none, he said in the email, who happens to be blind, and it would probably be a perfect fit for him. So his name is Justin Coughlin, and he was the featured subject of a film that was shortlisted for an Academy several years ago called Keep On Keepin' On. And yeah, he scored the film, and it's just it's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
The music is such a huge part of what makes the film special. I
Very
think.
true, very true.
And then Jacob later on added little flourishes to the score, so his voice and his genius is in there also. I feel like I'm so blessed to work with these two geniuses. They're both just out of this world talent musically.
So great.
Yeah. And then so they both partnered and co-wrote a theme song to the film called Flow Freely, and it just went live on Spotify not too long ago.
Good for you.
And they're performing here at Tribeca. It's just a dream to have them support.
Absolutely, and it adds dimension, right, to
So
the
much.
whole project.
Yeah.
This is just so great. I really just wish you the best of luck with this.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say before we kind of finish up?
Geez, I don't know. I guess I owe profound thanks to Tribeca for opening this opportunity. It's pretty cool for an environmental film like this to have a platform, because the dream is totally to sneak this as far into the mainstream as possible, you know? So I'm really thankful to them. Thank you,
That's
Tribeca.
great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for joining us, and I really appreciate it, and best of luck with the film.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm Lauren Delisa Coleman.